Board composition rules, will rattle through this one. This one's relatively straightforward to cover. So the first item here is when you close a funding round, we're going to create a set of board minutes that authorize on behalf of the board you doing a bunch of things when you close a funding round, like allotting new shares, potentially creating an option scheme, um, uh, adopting the new articles of association, for example. So there's a bunch of actions you're going to take. And this is indicating where that board meeting will occur. Broadly, the two options are it's either going to occur on at your registered address or your correspondence address, and this address will be put at the top of those board meetings that we'll produce for you. You need to indicate what the quorum required for the board is. This means broadly that how many directors need to be present out of all the directors in order for the board meeting to be quorum, which means, if you don't have this recognized number of people, then you shouldn't hold a board meeting at all. It's not a recognized board meeting. So to give you an example, if you've only got one founder in your business, you will want the quorum to be one so you can hold a board meeting yourself. If there are three founders in your business, then you may decide between you that actually, in theory, you should have all three of you present, but you will allow a board meeting to occur if two out of the three people are present, in which case you would put two in this box here. The next item is around, will the board chairman have a casting vote? So if you've got an even number of people on your board, so if you've got, say, 2 directors or 4 directors, sometimes you can reach something called deadlock, where if you imagine you've got 4 directors and 2 people vote for a specific item and 2 people vote against, then you can find that you've got 50-50, and actually to carry a board motion you need 51% or more of your directors to vote, and it's 1 member, 1 vote. What this allows you to do is say, well, actually, in a position where we've got 2 people voting for something and 2 people voting against, the chairman's vote can count as effectively, it can get you over that kind of deadlock situation. And that chairman has something called a casting vote. So if the chairman votes for something, even though it's 50-50, then that motion will go ahead. Quite often this is set as no, so that you need to achieve a proper majority. But this is a nice way in where you've got even number of directors to kind of break that deadlock. It's a fairly maximum time between board meetings is an indication of what maximum period there is between each of the board meetings occurring. This is a protection for investors who will want to understand that, at least, 4 times a year, your company will hold a formal board meeting. This isn't just a meeting of the directors to have a chit chat and agree, monthly management meetings or whatever. This is a formal board meeting. So quite often, investors will want to see it. And usually, I think 4 strikes the right balance of having not a huge gap between each of the meetings, but also not having to have them, every 3 weeks or whatever, which would be too soon. The next item is very related as well. This is how many board meetings occur per year. The reason you've got both of these items is, you can imagine a scenario where, investors intend that there are, say, 26 board meetings a year, but the founders could say, right, well, we're going to have 1 board meeting every day every working day over the next 2 months, and we're going to squeeze them into 2 months. That is not the intention that investors would imagine. So by having both of these parameters, a maximum time between board meetings and a minimum per year, they can be certain that if these 2 parameters, there will be a minimum of 4 per year, and there'll be a maximum gap of 15 weeks between those. So it's just kind of sensible parameters to make sure that those board meetings are happening at a relatively regular cadence. Sometimes if you take investment from specific groups, so some of the SEI, SEIS funds, some of the angel networks, they will want you to create a post called an investor director. This is where a member or somebody that those groups nominate sits on your board. It's really interesting. There's two sections here. One is around investor director. One is around board observer. The first item here is around board observer. So a board observer is somebody that that investment group nominates who sits on the board as an observer rather than a statutory director, which is really important. So what it means is that person, a board observer, cannot vote. So when there's a board meeting and the board directors are voting on something, the board observer does not participate in that vote, but they do get access to everything that is presented at board. So they get all of the board packs prior to the board, and they get to attend the board meeting as an observer. They can view everything, and actually they can give their opinion, so they can steer the company if they wish, but they don't get to yeah, they don't get to formally vote. So a board observer is not quite as powerful as an investor director, but it still does give kind of eyes and ears to those investment groups on your board. The next item is around an investor director, and this is like a board observer, but the person does get to vote. So if there are four founders and one investor director, you effectively have five people voting at every board meeting, and that investor director will participate in each of those votes. The reason why lots of groups don't like investor directors, it puts quite a weight on the shoulders of that investor director. It gives what are called fiduciary duties, or legal duties, onto that investor director. It creates some risk and liability for that investor director that doesn't appear with a board observer. So increasingly now we're seeing people wanting to put board observers, so they got eyes and ears, onto boards rather than investor direct.